Hi, I'm Maya from Book and Dreams and welcome to a new video. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I've read in the months of June and July. I have been sort of in a reading slump, though it doesn't seem like that because I've read 15 things in those 2 months. But since like end of May and the beginning of June, uh, I began my reading slump because I was not enjoying anything I was reading. I was picking up books and putting them down, and when that happens, I just sort of I go into the genres that I really enjoy, and I know that it doesn't take a lot to make me happy with those genres. So I started reading paranormal romances or some authors that I know that I enjoy everything they've ever written. So there's also that also includes a lot of rereads. In those 2 months, I think I've reread Katrina Jackson's The Family series about 3 times because it's just so fun, and it just kept me reading. So the next 15 books you are going to hear about are basically books that I try to read to get out of a reading slump. And as I said, most of it is paranormal romance of some sort. So I'm just going to start with the books that I read in June. So the first book I read in June is by one of my favorite authors, John Scalzi, and that is the Kaiju Preservation Station. Basically, the author himself said that this was book that's supposed to be a pop song. It's supposed to be short and fun and entertaining, and it was all of those things. Basically, we follow Jamie. This is a book set in COVID times. So Jamie loses his job in a tech startup and starts working as a delivery dude. You know how everybody started working with delivery apps and such during COVID. And he comes across an old friend who basically offers him a mysterious job with his animal preservation agency or something, right? So basically, he starts working for this agency who basically work with kaiju. Now, if you don't know, kaiju are big monsters. So they're basically like giant dinosaur-like things. If you watched Pacific Rim, those creatures are basically kaiju. I think Godzilla can be considered as a kaiju. Anyway, so basically these beings live in an alternate Earth, and basically Jamie goes there to work as a person who lifts things, and then stuff starts to happen because, of course, being a sort of government agency, they do have private donors, and one of those donors comes for a visit and tries to do shit. Yeah, I listened to it on audio. Will Wheaton did a fantastic job as always with John Scalzi books, and this was such a fun read, and I enjoyed it a lot. Then I started reading Stalked by the Kraken by Lillian Lark and the sequel Deceived by the Gargoyles. Basically, I find these books, actually started watching a bunch of romance booktubers, and when they do paranormal romance or they do like trope recommendations, I always find books to read and I just read them. So basically, Stalked by the Kraken, this is a monster romance in the Monster Matches series. Basically, we follow a witch who is a matchmaker, and she made a bad match a couple of months ago, and so she's sort of doubting her skills right now, and she's not doing her job. In her mating agency, or I guess matching agency, comes in this Kraken dude. He's the dude who's a Kraken. He's not a shifter, but whatever. Anyway, and he's like, I want to be matched with you. And that sort of starts their romance. And, there's stuff happening in the background, but, it's the romance that we're in for. Deceived by the Gargoyles, basically, we follow a witch who uses the mating agency. Not mating, matching agency. Mating agency is for the other books. Matching agency, and she comes from old money, and everybody who she goes out with basically wants to go out with her because of her family's name, influence, and money, and so she doesn't want to do that anymore, so she goes to the witch. So she matches her with a gargoyle who is perfect for her, but he also is basically looking for a mate for his clan, so he has two gargoyle, not brothers, but like clan members, and they need a mate to sort of not fulfill, but fill up the clan, whatever, make the clan more complete, right? So basically, there's this element of secrecy, and she's like, you know, when she meets the brothers, there's the whole thing like they know what this is all about, but she doesn't. But then when everything comes out, gives you a little dose of angst, which I do enjoy in my romances. And each gargoyle is sort of has a trope. There's like a grumpy one, there's the artistic one, and whatnot, and you know the youngest one trouble. So both of these books, they were fine. They were, you know, our average monster romance, had some angst in it. The relationships were kind of different because in each romance there were secrets from both parts. So you're kind of waiting for them to come out and to see how everybody will react to stuff happening. But they were pretty fun, and if there will be more books in the series, I'll definitely check them out. Then in June, I also participated in the Queer Romance Readathon, for which I read the group book, which is Drag Me Up by Air M. Virtues. Now, this is a Hades and Persephone romance, sort of set in modern time. Everyone's human. And it was a good romance between the two of them. There was lots of communication, and you could definitely see the positive impact that they had on each other. So basically, this is set in like, is it mafia kind of? Well, basically, the town is divided amongst the gods of the Greek pantheon, and everyone has their business. Everyone has their part of town. So it's like sort of a bit like the mafia. And Hades, he owns a club, and Persephone is a performer in the, you know, the things acrobatic where they're in air and they're like twirling and stuff and using silk dancer. Is that what it's called? But anyway, that's what she is. And basically her dancing company opens a show in Hades' club, and they sort of start a romance. There's also the problem of Zeus being an asshole, but it's definitely, like, you can hear when you learn about myths and stories about the Greek pantheons, Greek gods, basically you hear what kind of an asshole Zeus is, and this book definitely depicted that with, accuracy, and definitely found a very interesting way of showing it. So that part was fun. What was kind of a minus for this book for me is that I'm not all that familiar with the Greek pantheon. What I know from Xena, Hercules, and whenever a science fiction show starts to travel back in time or meet some civilization that is based on the Greek pantheon. So when there were so many characters, so many like people, and if you lack the knowledge of like who is who and what the connection is between them, I felt like I was missing on things. So when you meet like three minor characters and you're like supposed to, are they? And I kept thinking like, are they important? Are they somehow connected to the story and stuff? So that was kind of a minus for me because I don't know everyone in the Greek pantheon and don't know their connections. But other than that, it was a very cool romance, and definitely give it a read. And the other book I read for the Queer Romance Readathon was Cemetery Boys by Aidan Thomas. We follow Yadriel, who is a trans boy and who is having a hard time convincing his family, his father actually, to let him join the family business, that is being a male witch. Right. Bruja is the woman, Brujo is the man, yeah. So becoming a male witch, and basically he just decides on his own to try to, because they go through, okay. So when the members of his family turn 16, they go, or 15 or something, they go through this ritual, a ceremony in which they have to summon a ghost and do something. So basically his 15th birthday passed, and his father didn't want to do that. So on his 16th birthday, I think or 17th, I don't remember, he basically decided to do the ceremony by himself with the help of his cousin, and he summoned the ghost. And he summoned the ghost of a boy named, I forgot, Julian, sorry. They're Latin, so it's Julian. And he basically, Julian is like the bad boy of his school, and because he summoned his ghost means that he died. So the two of them are trying to figure out how he died and what happened. There were some other mysteries happening throughout the book, like people dying, but their bodies disappearing and such. So, there was stuff to discover. And there's also a budding romance between the two of them, which was slow burn and very interesting, and I enjoyed it a lot. Another thing that I enjoyed in this book, it was a cool story, but there was so much foreshadowing that I knew exactly what was going to happen. I knew who the villain was the moment they appeared on the page. Yeah, I always enjoy the culture and the food and, you know, the sort of family dynamics in the Latin culture. And there is a lot of LGBTQ plus rep, and it was dealt with well, in my humble opinion. I enjoyed the book overall, and I'm looking forward to reading other stuff from the author. And this now brings us to July. In July, I read Genderqueer by Maya Kobabe. This is an autobiographical graphic novel which describes the author's journey through self-discovery and self-identity, basically, and coming to figure out what their gender is and how and want to be represented, and how and want to represent is not the wrong word, identify themselves. So basically finding pronouns and stuff. It was very interesting. I liked the visual representation of the gender exploration. There were some topics and themes that are, I think, are universal, and I found myself sympathizing and with a lot of them. So there's talk about gender, body image, self-love, self-hate, and it was very interesting. Christina and I both read it for our book club thing that we have with our friends. So if you get a chance, definitely give it a read. Then I read Grand Theft NYE, right? Yes, by Katrina Jackson. So basically, I had this great plan of, like, I'm gonna make a reading vlog reading Katrina Jackson books and not rereading the Family series. And I can only get my hands on Grand Theft NYE, so that's what I read. So basically, in this, is it a novella? It's a novella. Basically, it's a romance. We follow Chloe, who is a scammer. She works with a group of other thieves, and during a job, she basically they rob rich people, basically. So during a job, she meets Robert, and basically she feels an immediate attraction to him, and they spend the night together, and it's all fantastic, and it's all great. The smut is fantastic. And in the morning, she leaves with his car and, like, some of his, like, trinkets and stuff, and disappears from his life. And so Robert spends the next, I don't know, 6 months or so trying to find her. And when he does, stuff happens. It was so fun. It was such a fun read. I really am enjoying certain aspects of Katrina Jackson's works, because I've read some here in read some in August that were like, but so far this one was really, really good, and I enjoyed it a lot. Then I continued with the Phoenix Pack series by Suzanne Wright, and I read Cardinal Secrets. This is book 3 in this series, and this was the one I was kind of looking forward to the most, because I knew it would have a lot of angst. So in this one, we follow Shia and Nick. So Shia, they're both like werewolf shifters, or wolf shifters, right? Right, yeah. So basically, Nick and Shia are mates. They both know that they're mates, but Nick decided not to publicly acknowledge her as Shia as his mate. So basically, he rejected her, but he wouldn't, like, leave her alone. He would be around her, and he's from a different pack, so he would visit her pack to sort of talk to the dude and, like, in somehow be involved with her life. So she sort of got fed up with it and left, and basically disappeared. And when that happened, Nick was like, oh fuck no. So his reasons for rejecting Shia was that he has a degenerative disease, which apparently was not helped by his all over werewolfness, and so he's like, okay, and he didn't want to saddle her with him, having a lower quality of life later on. And basically, when she skipped town, he was like, oh fuck no, and he went to find her, and basically spent the entirety of the book trying to convince her that, basically make up for the fact that he was being an asshole and such. Sort of a B-plot of that story is that Shia moved to town that is filled with anti-shifter terrorists. So that's sort of drove the plot in a certain direction. So there was lots of angst about this, but there was also it was my favorite in the series, but it doesn't really say much, because Nick, as the sort of the alpha dude, wasn't such an asshole as the dudes in the previous 2 books of this series, and he wasn't at all obsessed with anal as the first 2 dudes were. And in the first 2 books, Dante and the first one, I forgot the dude's name, basically their sort of goal was to assert their dominance on their mates. And since both of their mates were kind of, they were alphas themselves, there were interesting relationship dynamics in the first two books. They were also in this one as well, but this one seemed more nicer, I guess, because he wasn't being a complete asshole like the dudes in the previous two books. So my main gripe with these two books is basically one, the bad guys are obvious and very cheesy, and also the books are way too long. The characters spend so much time introspection, just basically trying to work out every trauma and every hang up about a relationship ever, like anything bad that's happened to them that sort of informed who they are. They're trying to fix it in this 350-page book. And it was like, can you just leave it for somewhere else and not ruin your relationship because you're like wishy-washing and trying to like deal with, maybe you have to deal with your trauma to be a good relationship, but basically it just, in my opinion, spent too much time in introspection and just less on stuff happening. So I guess if you are into really, really character-driven stories with, it's just like shifter romances, this might be a series for you. I know I'm not going to continue on with the series because I do not care about the other the next couple that the book is supposed to be about, and but I'm going to try and read something else by Suzanne Wright to see if I like any of her other shifter romance series. Then I went to another shifter romance series. I read The Tyrant's Alpha's Rejected Mate by Kate C. Wells and the sequel, The Heir Apparent's Rejected Mate. Basically, as you can tell from the title, we have a shifter romance in which in the first one, so basically there is a pack. And in this pack you have the higher tier and lower tier of werewolves. So a girl, I do have her name, Una. So Una is from the lowest of the lower tiers, and she basically recognizes the alpha as her mate, and she's like in the middle. They're in the middle of like she's in the middle of serving everybody dinner and whatnot, and she's like, "Oh, you're my mate," and then she gets the crap beat out of her by the alpha female. Una is not alpha at all, and he does nothing and basically kicks her out, and then he figures out, oh shit, she's right, and spends the rest of the book trying to make up for it. Basically, the tag is, he rejected me and then realized I'm the center of his world. Bummer. Basically describes the book well. What I enjoyed about this book, first of all, was the romance was interesting. It was fun to read. I liked how, what's his name? Killian wasn't such an asshole when he figured out he fucked up. Usually when, as set in the Suzanne Wright books, so the alphas were assholes the entire time, throughout, whatever, they were going ups and downs and whatnot. But here, Killian was like, oh, fuck, I messed up and I have to figure out how to fix it. And so he sort of adapts and, does what he can to make sure that his mate is taken care of and whatnot. So that was cool. The world building is different. We learn about this pack and sort of the tiers and the levels of rank in this pack and how they function, what the history was with his father, who was horrible, and them trying to sort of live in this modern world and trying to adapt and survive. It was an interesting read. Now the sequel, The Heir Apparent's Rejected Mate, basically similar premise, but a different pack. So this is like a neighboring pack to the one that we read in the first book, which also leads me to like one thing of this book is basically how to learn about the new pack, which is completely different than the previous one. So it's like a whole new world you're getting yourself into and learning about. Basically we follow Rosie and what's the guy's name? Caddock? Okay, basically Rosie is also on the lower tier of the lowest tier of their pack. So if the upper ranks would be like high society because they live in buildings, they're like business people and whatnot, Rosie be like with the, I don't want to say the word trailer trash, but basically she is part of the scavengers. They live in trailers on like the swampy area, like on like the outskirts of their territory, and they go around and they don't really follow the rules of society. They, collect things and shiny things and stuff. They basically try and they're like hyenas, but not hyenas, And basically, of course, she recognizes him as his mate. And he's like, well, okay, she's my mate, but, you know, she doesn't fit my worldview and what I'm supposed to be doing right now. So, you know, I'll just, she'll have to wait until I, like, do stuff and she'll be there, right? So that made the tag for this one, I wrote down. He rejected me for reasons. Too bad for him. No takebacks. I will warn you that the whole book is basically told in the summary that is on Goodreads, because it says in the summary that something happens, and that thing that happens like at the 70% point of the book. And that was like, okay, dude, like you just told me the whole book in the summary, but whatever. There was a very awful bullying scene in this book, basically because, and which was a surprise to me, this entire thing is set in high school. They're like, both of them are like 19, but still like in their last year of their version of high school, which kind of gave me a jolt because I don't do high school romances and whatnot. And there was such a horrible bullying scene because, of course, the alpha female whatnot wanted to make sure Rosie knew her place and whatnot, and did something so disgusting and so awful that I skipped it, and I did not want to read it because it was just fucking horrendous. So, you know, you're warned. Yeah, I read those two. They were interesting. Looking forward to the third one. The third book in this series, I think, is going to have like a age gap romance, which I don't read those. I've never read one of those, but I'm interested to see how they will deal with this in the third one. I'm not sure when it comes out, but I'm looking forward to that. Then I started reading the Prime Mating Agency series by Regine Abel. I'm not sure how to pronounce the author's name, sorry. So basically it starts with, I married a lizard man, then it goes to I married a naga, then I married a birdman, and I married a minotaur. I'm missing one. I didn't read I married a merman because I don't know why. I got tired of all the other ones. So basically this is a romance in which one half of the couple is human and in some kind of trouble, and to get out of this kind of trouble they have to marry like the local species, right? And they find their mate through the Prime Mating Agency, someone who's like supposed to be perfect for them. And so in each book, so the girl marries whatever the local species is. So the lizard man, the naga, the birdman, the minotaur, right? And together they start this respectful relationship. They're both sort of attracted to each other, and you know, it grows from there. Now, my problem with this is, so my problem with these books, because I think I gave all of them like 2 or 3 stars, is I am looking for specific things in my romances. And, you know, when I don't get them, I give them lower stars. Now, most of this book is logistics and problem solving of a specific problem that these two have. Or actually the world has. So in The Lizard Man, what was the problem? Farming. So they basically dealt half of the book with farming and how to convince the lizard people to start farming again because they have trauma from the previous, from their history with farming, right? The naga thing was, what was the problem with the naga thing? Hunting? Was it hunting? I don't remember. Anyway, the birdman was protecting a village. So basically defenses and how to build a shield, how to patrolling and shit, like how to, you know, make sure that they don't get wiped out. And in the Minotaur, basically the logistics of how to build an arena and businesses around the arena and stadium to make money and whatnot. That is not what I read my romances for. So that was like, okay, dude, why am I reading about, you know, the business contract that they're going to sign? What doesn't fucking matter. Overall, these romances were kind of, but they were different in a way that each romance comes from mutual respect and mutual admiration, and there's a lot of communication, and there's a lot of, it's very chaste, you know? And they have like one smut scene and everything else was like, oh, we made love the entire night. I'm like, okay. So yeah, if you're into something like not as explicit and with lots of logistic and problem solving, this is a series for you. And there's also, I think the last one that came out was with the dragon, and I'm like so interested because the summary sounds so good and it's so interesting, but then the execution was like, dude, no. So yeah. And then I read Yours Insatiably by Avida Weiss. This is technically book 1 in the Hunger Duet, but this is the sequel to Feed, which was a short story in which we follow Avrin Averin, I'm mispronouncing it probably, and Pi. So basically Averin is a succubus and Pi is like this moth, god mod thing. So I have no idea. Basically it's a monster romance. So they meet. When they meet, basically Averin goes on there's like a monster hookup app in which you can like request things that work for your species, I guess. So she asks and gets Pi, who basically they work together. She doesn't know that he worked for the agency as well. So it's like, oh shit, like this dude I work with and who's driving me crazy at work is at my door, and you know they decide to just go with it, and they had a fantastic night of sex. And then basically this story, this book, Yours Insatiably, is the continuation of their relationship. It starts with Averin, deciding not to, continue relationship with him, but trying to sort of learn more about who she is and about her, not species, but meeting sort of the other monsters in her vicinity, and trying to enjoy everything that the clubs and people and relationship that she can have with like people of, it's so stupid saying with their own species, but she can't really hang out with humans because humans are kind of antagonistic and oh my god, judgmental and such. But so to find a place where she can be comfortable, because she basically is very uptight and very in control of herself. So she basically uses this book to end Pi and his friendship and the relationship to find herself. And it was really good. My problem was with the writing. It's very flowery at times, and the characters feel everything very intensely, and the author uses lots of metaphors and similes and every other way of artistically expressing how they feel, and it was too much at times. And I'm like, in the middle of the sex scene, I just kind of get lost because I have no idea what the author meant, and I'm confused by the language, and I'm like, I have no idea what's happening here right now. So that was kind of a minus for me. You can get lost in the flowery language, so and everything's very intense, and it was a bit much at times. So yeah, those are the books that I've read in the last couple of months. As I said, most of them were paranormal romances of some sort. Again, it's a comfort genre for me, and whenever I don't feel like reading, I read that because it's fun, and had some good books, had some bad books. If you have read anything that I have mentioned in this video, please do let me know down below. If you like this video, please press the like button, subscribe to our channel. I will leave the link to Christina's. She did a wrap-up recently somewhere and down there, so you can check it out to see what she's been reading. And yeah, check out the links in the description box. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!